All right, so it's about strategic theaters of reality, right? That's what I would like to speak about. And the fact that all movement is determined by abstractions, invisible algorithms, and the logic of rule systems that control choices, shaped by digital control revolutions in asymmetric networks. The fusion of flesh and machine creates unrestricted battle spaces of total war. Warfare extends to the planet's biomass, no longer confined to the military sphere. It grows through a nervous matrix of network dominance in combat zones that see. In this assemblage of evil eyes, the controlling center is occult, never occupied by a known leader or a clear ideology. Information peacekeeping, the purest form of war, controls minds, not just bodies. Psychological operations channel fear and longing. Dr. Delgados worked on physical control of the mind towards a psycho-civilized society to electrically control the brain. However, there are more advanced approaches to control the movement of people. Power is related to secrecy, and secrecy connects with the sacred in mysterious ways. The secret of truth-making is invisible influence. This information is not simulation of truth, but a regime of hidden dimensions. The elementary principle of all deception is to attract the enemy's attention to what you wish him to see, and to distract his attention from what you do not wish him to see. This is how the skillful conjurer obtains results. Control and restrictions management is now largely privatized. The business of communication is to manage perceptions, to motivate behaviors. Privatized propaganda networks, public relations, and cognitive exploits for whoever has the money to pay. Civil war of propaganda, according to De Boer. Terror is a media strategy to trigger response to change behavior by inducing fear in someone other than its victims. Humans turn the buzzing confusion of sense data into a meaningful order. Schemes to describe reality, to identify patterns and allow an anticipatory response are also the source of illusory belief systems. There are no borders between seeing and seeing something as. So, to justify the dominance of a group, it needs a set of ideas and narratives plausible enough for creating belief. These constitutional myths create the culture in which they are believed. The networks of mutual codetermination, the dimensional space of opinion shrinks. Interacting agents reinforce decisional feedback loops in cognitive mechanisms of confirmation bias, selective thinking, belief locking, informational cascades, selective memory, and echo chamber effects. Information dominance needs to embrace culture and art, to extend mastery to the symbolic. Rules of a game do not simply tell a player what kinds of moves can and cannot be made. They indicate what the game is about. They reveal its purpose and objectives and how a player is expected to behave. Game rules of neoliberal theories started out mad, but quickly turned nuts. Cold War strategies of mutually assured destruction escalated into nuclear use theories. In the laboratory of social relations, theories of action were splitting the social atom in a behavioral matrix of group dynamics. Lauren Daston describes the strange career of Cold War rationality in how reason lost its mind and how game theory and Kriegsspiel turned into an overarching theme for the social sciences. The prisoner's dilemma drives paranoid war games in finance and public policy. These models of operations change from descriptive to normative prescriptive. Predatory and anti-human formulas of rational choice exclude social utility in favor of hostile economic exploitation. prisoners of public choice, are trapped in Cold War logic. And Adam Curtis, The Trap, shows how a simplistic model of human beings as self-seeking, almost robotic creatures led to today's idea of freedom. This new world order of rational choice is locked into the metrics of money. Money, breeding money, was considered bestial until Calvin made it a path to financial salvation. Market economy turned into a magical machine that regulates individual conflicts in stable, harmonious system. Money is therefore the God among commodities, said Marx. True believers see a reasonable God guiding with invisible hand to this promised market land. Others see spectral economies, haunted by repressed material bodies of humanity. The body of money, but a shadow. And tokens of desire addressed as money never exist independently of cultural context. Thanks to the Tinkerbell effect, there are many things that exist because people believe. When money is the synonym for social rationality, financial crisis is a crisis of the rational. Who owns the land? Property does not exist before establishing an identity of owners. Capital dominium ex jure is the Roman concept for absolute control over a piece of land and the sky above. Ideologies of private property as supreme expression of freedom reach a peak when its origins in the use of land had long been obsolete. Today, property is not about ownership of media, but possession by media. In the military, virtual security, entertainment, borders between facts and fantasy disappear. Game maps guide behavior and encode rules in the fusion of virtual and real, putting the power of simulation into the hands of warfighters. All but war is simulation. Military, industrial, light and magic predicts the future in crystal balls of augmented reality. However, things are not always what they seem to be. Sumerians believed in the seas of knowledge. Akkadian creation myths feature its primordial sea serpent, Mumu Tiamat, the dark empress ruling the chaos of the sea and the realms of the Leviathan. The word information, rooted in unconscious fear of the silence of the universe, a leftover fetish of dogmatism as superstitious spooks, as Peter Lemon Wilson. At Elizabeth's 16th century court, spymaster John Dee, codenamed 007, coined the term magical imperialism. Tactics relate to timing, strategies to space, and operations to logistic control. Space is the place, formerly known as heaven. The colonization and militarization of outer space speeds up at the same time as the search for truth serums and invading minds through psychoactive substances, psychological experiments, and splitting brains. Hyperspace is virtual and real, symbolic and material, inner and outer. Space, a multidimensional product of use, experience, and understanding. David Harvey's space matrix shows that space includes absolute and relative space-time, relational space-time, material experience and conceptualized space, desires and dreams. Methods to manage and control space are technologies of power. Mapping is power, but man is not lost because humans use science and technology to navigate in complex environments. Cybernetics maps reality with technology, like the Greek steersman Kibernao setting directions on the ship. The ancients mapped the movement of the stars to explore the oceans, computing the heavens for the logistics on Earth. Mapping inner space with outer space, the whole Earth remains a maddening theory that cannot be displayed. All social action flows through boundaries determined by classification schemes, says Robert Darnton. The map is not the territory, says Korzybski, but El Iblis Shah claims the map is the territory, and classification weighs heavier than facts. If Google told you to jump off a cliff, would you? Looking at the statistics, probably yes. Information becomes reality in landscapes of military urbanism and shapes the realities of world cities. Algorithmic chains of agency colonize the future. A.L. Weizmann explains that the city is not just the site, but the very medium of warfare. A flexible, almost liquid medium, forever contingent and in flux. Giorgio Agamben explains a shift from politics to policing in societies of control. If government aims for the effects and not the causes, it will be obliged to extend and multiply control. With drones and robots hunting in packs, we kill people based on metadata. Ubiquitous computing in global urbanization spawns omnipresent borders. Smart cities are an authoritarian vision of cities under centralized surveillance and control. Overplanned, overdetermined, and driven by the needs of enterprise, says Adam Greenfield. Users are abused by deep data mining in a decentralized system of asymmetric relations with an impenetrable core. Denis Diderot devised this encyclopedia of the sciences and art to change the way people think. Dewey's decimal system of library classification was an anxious battle against the chaos of information. Enlightenment was about what humans know, but then there is the unknowable. Horror, a threat from entities that fall through the cracks of ontological categories. Obsessive statistics, eugenics, and racial profiling intertwine in modernity's attention to order and standardization. Failures of the imagination and errors of judgment grounded in the politics of obsessive compulsive disorder. Everything can be measured, and what gets measured gets managed, threatens Kinsey. Ideologies of individualization impose schemes of fragmentation, and data body categorization creates routine responses in social interactions. Statistical calculations turn friends into ghostly apparitions that follow the logic of economization to the grave. For Tim Berners-Lee, each social networking site is a silo walled off from others. The more you enter, the more you come locked in. Individuals locked into flow management and fluid mining of cognitive response. It's lies, damned lies, and statistics in classification war. Algorithmic regimes produce cascading chains that are machine-readable only. But human brains are social organs, not computers. Will the data deluge make the scientific method obsolete? Chris Anderson declares the end of theory because in big data mythology, large amounts of data are a higher form of intelligence. Correlations replace causation. Judgment is the product of machines. The perfect search engine would be like the mind of God, says Sergey Brin. Proteus, a sea god in Greek mythology, tells the future, but only answers someone who captures him and changes his shape to avoid justice. What one believes about the world and thinks what could be has powerful effects on how things turned out. Imagination is not just a subjective process, but also the creation of the real. Painting pictures into the mind is at the core of an arsenal of power. Algorithmic prediction industries paint the future by numbers. Cultural intelligence is a practice that uses the technologies of the imagination to paint another picture. Thank you.